Hey there, YouTubers. In this video, we're sort of going to go off mouthpieces for a second, and I'd like to share something with you that I've thought about quite a bit and wanted to share with you for some time. This is probably not the most appropriate time to do it because springtime is coming. It'd be better when wintertime is coming for most of us. But of course, you in Australia down there, you guys, the timing is just perfect for you. Anyway, I want to talk about cracking. If you happen to be one of those unfortunate souls that owns a wood clarinet, you know that cracking is always an imminent danger. I'm going to talk about, in this video, about some of the things you can do to help prevent your clarinet from cracking. Now, having said that, I need to say also this, that clarinets, pieces of wood and clarinets are a lot like people. Some of them, no matter how well you treat them, they're going to screw you in the end. So you've got to be prepared for that. Some pieces of wood are just going to crack. It just doesn't matter what you do. But then the vast majority of pieces of wood, they're not going to crack at all if you do sensible and reasonable things. We're going to talk about some of those coming up. The major cause of wood cracking: disparity.
Oh no!
Well, it's bad, all right, but I mean, it's not that bad. But nevertheless, it's something you should avoid because cracking is a problem with clarinets. Even if you fix it, it devalues your clarinet if you ever decide to sell it. So here's how to avoid the problem. In order to avoid a problem, the first thing you have to do is understand exactly what the problem is. So many of you may be asking, what do I mean by disparity? It's kind of a weird word. Well, disparity has to do with describing something in a state of difference. For instance, if you take one piece of wood and you make one part of it very cold and the other part of it very hot, then you have a disparity of temperature, or the difference in temperature. If you make one part of it very wet and the other part is very dry, then you have a disparity of humidity. Well, a piece of wood is a living kind of thing. Your clarinet breathes sort of like an accordion from year-round, and it changes in dimensions, sometimes quite drastically, depending on the area you live in, due to the weather and the climate, the humidity, and temperature conditions. We all experience this that have played wood clarinets. So whenever the clarinet is hit with extremes, then the wood itself reacts to those extremes. If the clarinet's, for instance, very dry on the outside and very wet on the inside, the wet part wants to swell and expand. The dry side wants to contract and pull down. This sets up, this disparity of humidity in the clarinet sets up a conflict in the movement of the wood. You have one piece of wood, you have two extreme conditions going on inside the wood. And the wood is reacting, as it does naturally, to each one. And this sets up a tension within the piece of wood itself, and that tension finally has to be released in some way. Let's look at some of the symptoms of those tensions. There's some sure signs that will reveal that the clarinet is having quite a bit of disparity and quite a bit of conflict of movement that are dead giveaways. And I'll give you a few of those. You can look out for them, especially in the very dry winter months in a lot of climates. One of the things that's going to happen is the throat A key can get very, very stiff. Another sure indicator is that the register key itself might get very sluggish and feel like that it's moving very slowly. Again, the posts are contracting because the wood is shrinking on the outside. The diameter is shrinking, and it's shrinking to such a degree that it's coming in and binding this key, and it'll start to move very sluggishly. Sometimes the trill keys will get very, very sluggish and not want to move. All of these are indicators that the upper joint is very, very dry on the outside, and of course as you keep playing it, it gets wet, stays wet on the inside. So the inside remains swollen from all the moisture. The outside, from the dry indoor heating from the winter or whatever, is getting very, very, is causing the outside of the wood to contract. This is expanding, this is contracting. And the contraction plus the tension of squeezing in the posts eventually results in the cracking of the wood. This movement in the keys is something you should really watch for. If you get any stiffness in those keys at all, take the clarinet to a very good repairman immediately and let him or her shear off some of the material on the shaft of the key itself, and that'll relieve the tension so the post will be able to move and move in without binding the key and without creating any unneeded tension in the body of the clarinet. And this will sometimes help reduce the cracking issue. But there's a simple thing you can do preemptively to prevent this, along with loose rings and other things. And it's very, very simple and very, very nutritious.